Presented by the Making Star Wars Podcasting Network. This is the Cantina Cast, your watering hole for thought-provoking Star Wars discussion, character dissections, quote and scene analysis, honest opinions on the Star Wars news that interests you, and whatever else these guys come up with. Here are your hosts, Mike and Joa.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 201. Family Attachments is tonight's theme, I guess you could call it. And this episode is brought to you by Bombfell.com, and more on that a little bit later. All right, so tonight, it's, of course, me, Mike. I'm always the host here, and, of course, I'm always joined by Joa. Joa, say hello.
Well, hello there.
But tonight we have a guest. We'd like to introduce Albert, who's been our Discord, I guess you could say, manager. He's our social media guy. He's kind of like the maintenance man, I guess you could say, of the Cantina Cast. But say hello to the fine folks, Albert.
Hola.
Oh, well, there we go.
Yeah.
We get a little bit of Spanish there.
Yeah, we said maintenance man, so I thought I'd just kind of roll with that.
So we got a little bit of news, guys. And this is interesting because we got 3 people that actually will play Battlefront 2. And I guess the EA Star Wars Twitter account did something. They hinted over the weekend about what planets you'll be able to play. And finally, throughout the day, I guess they revealed what planets you'll be able to play and stuff like that. So I'll throw it to you first, Albert. You're our guest. What did you think of the list that you saw? What did you want to play? What interests you the most? Anything that doesn't interest you?
Yeah, all of the maps, at least these locations, look pretty interesting to me. I think the ones that stood out for me were Naboo, probably because I saw some of the demos and it just looked absolutely gorgeous. Apart from that, I'm interested in Starkiller Base and definitely want to see Takodana, because I wonder if they're going to be, is it going to be the ruins, or is it going to be in the temple, or we're going to be out in the forest? Those are probably the 3 that stood out for me. I
would imagine it'll be all 3 of those, to be honest. And I'm wondering I don't know if you've noticed this before, Albert, but I know Joe will remember this, is when Battlefront 1 came out, they had Endor. Endor was a beautiful map. It was fantastic. Like, it stood out, but the other maps kind of not as nice. I'm hoping we don't get that like Naboo's the shiny one that they're showing everybody, and then the rest because the Death Star in Battlefront 1 isn't so great in my opinion. But Joe, what did you think of this list?
Yeah, I mean, it's some stuff we've seen before from the first game that came out 2 years ago, and then and even they had the DLC which had Jakku in it. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to Takodana and also Starkiller Base, just because it's, I was fiending for the first game to release some Force Awakens DLC. I was begging for them to release Kylo Ren and Rey and all this stuff, and they didn't do it. So they're going to do it this game, though. So, I mean, that's finally, I'm kind of getting my wish there. And then in December, it's not on this list, but we've talked about it before, that Crate will be, a map that we can play as well when they release the first kind of DLC expansion for the game. I think that's like December 8th or something like that. So just right before the movie comes out. So it'll be, I'm just looking forward to all the new areas that we've never seen before in any kind of Star Wars video game before. And Kamino, I've never played. I think that I think Kamino was in the original Battlefront 2, like the old one?
Yes, the second one. It was in. I remember that, yeah. And that I love playing that Battlefront 2, the original, was awesome. I used to play it every day after school. Kashyyyk, I do remember playing, no, I don't think, there was Kashyyyk. I like playing Kashyyyk. So I remember the Wookiees and stuff. Out of this map, I would say Mos Eisley is probably one that really intrigues me. I don't know, maybe because of the Cantina Cast or whatnot, but actually Hoth, the planet that I love most in Star Wars, doesn't really appeal to me, I guess because I played it so much in the first one.
Yep.
But yeah, in Jakku doesn't even, although I was pretty good on the Jakku map when we played, it doesn't really intrigue me too much. Starkiller Base, I'm curious how that'll be. I imagine there'll be like a space mission with Poe going through and blowing up Starkiller Base, and then you'll be out in the forest with Rey and Finn and all that. And then I imagine it'll be inside the base or something like that. That'll be interesting how they go about that. And Endor will be, we've been there before, so that doesn't appeal too much. I mean, Kamino, Mos Eisley, Yavin actually kind of appeals to me a bit. I'd be curious to see how the planet looks, the gas giant in the horizon there when they show that. I don't think they showed anything. Have they showed anything on Yavin, Albert, at all?
No, nothing that I've seen so far.
No. All right.
Hey, I got a question
Yeah.
though. So it says Death Star 2. Like from the inside, how do I know it's not? I mean, what's the
The outside?
distinguishing factor between the Death Star 1 and the Death Star 2? That's the one that kind of sticks out to me is, what are they doing there?
Well, I would imagine you'll see Luke dragging Vader onto the shuttle. You might see that in the background or something like that. Like things are falling apart. I imagine there'll be like a mission where they kind of state what it is, before you go into the thing,
Mhm.
into the battle. They kind of do those little briefings. In the first one, they kind of did that. I imagine it'd be something like that, but who knows? And it'll be curious. I imagine it'll be mostly a space battle thing. Maybe you'll get something in the throne room. Maybe that'll be you could be one of the Imperial Guards or something
Yeah,
like that.
I could be mistaken, but I think these maps were the ground assault maps that they released. I think it specifically said that on there.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
Really?
I tried to look for that. You told me that, Albert, and I tried to look for that, and I couldn't. I went on the forums and looked on the Twitter page for them, and I couldn't myself find any confirmation on that. Now, again, even if this is the release list of what they're going to have, like we say, we're getting Crate like 3 weeks after the game is launched, and then and there's going to be, and all the DLC is going to be free, so
right.
They're not going to hold everybody hostage like kind of they did if you didn't want to pay another $50 last time. So they're going to be doing all those microtransactions with the loot crates and stuff, which are so very popular in video games now. So, and I'm not being facetious when I say that, but they are pretty popular. Way to go. And people who like to spend money on them, they seem to enjoy them. So, I mean, but hopefully, I think it's going to be pretty good. And I think maybe in the end, we're going to get, obviously a lot more maps than just this. Whether this is the total release list or not, I'm not sure. But either way, it's definitely not the final list.
No, but it's a lot of content when you think about it for the initial release. I mean, that'll keep us occupied for quite a while anyway, at least till the DLC comes about anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, let's get into The Last Jedi is finally done. It's a wrap. It's over. Rian Johnson put a Instagram photo up the other day. Things are done. Albert, what are your thoughts now going into it's it. This is it. This is like the big thing, and everyone's quest foaming at the mouth for a trailer. But what are your thoughts on Rian tweeting not tweeting, but showing it on Instagram and, it finally coming to a close, which it's funny because you would think it would have been done a while ago because they finished filming like a year ago. That always seemed weird to me, but I don't know. What are your thoughts, Albert?
Yeah, the first thing that came to mind when I saw that, I was actually happy for Rian. I mean, more than myself and more than the fans, but just everything that guy's been through, the amount of support he's shown the fans. You can see it on his face whenever you see the pictures or the videos or the interviews. I was actually more happy for him because he looked like the happiest guy in the world, not just as a director, but as a fan of the movie. Personally, I just can't even wait. I mean, I got goosebumps when I think I read that final post when it came out earlier this week. And you guys know I've got kids, and they every day at the dinner table, hey, is it done? Is it ready? When is the trailer coming out? I mean, I get asked all the time, and when I told them, there was like screeching at the dinner table. So at least from the Albert household, we are ready and all in, ready to go.
All right, Joe. Now I imagine this is great. You're a director. You wrapped up your Star Wars movie. You're great. It's done. You get a few weeks of like a breather. You're going to show the trailer. And then I imagine like a day after the trailer appears, you're like, oh, crap, this is really going to happen. And in a few months, the movie's going to be out. And I really hope I didn't screw up. And I hope people like it because people are nervous. I mean, we're a little apprehensive ourselves because, as you said plenty of times on the show, Joe, Ryan's such a wild card. We don't know. I mean, we kind of have an idea, but we don't really know at the end of the day. I don't know. What are your thoughts on going in now that it's all wrapped up and ready to go?
Yeah, I mean, it seems, I know it seems like it takes forever to like get these movies done, but I mean, I think we've mentioned this before, but JJ was working on The Force Awakens. What was it? I think 2 or 3 weeks before the premiere, like the big premiere. And I mean, this movie's done, almost 3 months before, the official release date. So, I mean, Ryan is kind of ahead of the game, and definitely from some of his tweets, it looks like it's been more on the in the sound editing aspect of things, more so than, hey, we got to put this effect in, or what am I cutting from the movie? So it really feels like he's I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing, but it seems like it was obviously in stages, and they were doing the sound there at the end, and so they were finally able to finish that up as he promised. So, but yeah, I mean, it's I think that I mean, it's good for him because now he's going to have to go do a million press things, leading up to the movie, and then even after the movie's released, then they're going to have to go to like an LA premiere, a New York premiere, a London premiere, and then it'll come out in China later, and then he'll probably have to go to that China premiere. He's going to be doing a million interviews. So yeah, it's probably good for him. He can kind of get a break right now, or if he wants to, he can kind of go ahead and start maybe, working on another project, maybe writing a new screenplay or something, and kind of get his mind off Star Wars before he gets slapped in the face with all the press and stuff again. So, but other than that, yeah, I mean, you're still, we're just still waiting, I mean, every day, I think in the Discord, it's, somebody saying, do you think we're going to, think the trailer might come out? And I think everybody's pretty much kind of finally figured it out now that, it's going to be October. So.
Yeah, I think, well, it's close now. It's within a few weeks.
By the time you listen to this episode, it will be in October. So we might just be after this episode actually
a week
comes out. Yeah, maybe even less than a week. So yeah, we might be jumping on and doing an episode not soon after most people listen to this episode. So
true. So you might get 2 for 1 that week. I'm relieved that it's done, but I'm still that mystery of, they filmed it and then it was Billy in the can for like a year. And I guess it's not a bad thing because Ryan got to take his time and do the effects and even maybe the sound and everything. So it's probably going to be one of the most polished Star Wars movie. I guess that's with every Star Wars movie that'll come out now, right? We said that with Rogue One. It's the best looking one because it's the newest technology, the newest effects and all that other stuff. But in any case, Albert, just one more thing. Do you think it's odd that it sat in the can for so long? And, and the funny thing is comparing directors here, like if this is JJ, it would be November that they finally put the final finishing touches on, which will be episode 9 will probably be like that. But Albert, just last thoughts on things finishing up.
Yeah, no, I'm a half full kind of guy. And I think, to be honest, it sounds like things went really well. And there's a part of me that, I don't want to be a pessimist, but it does make me wonder, did everything go as smoothly as we think it to go? But I'm going to stay positive and say that, he was a director, he was a writer, he got to call the shots. He had a lot of support from, Kathleen and Lucasfilm, and I think it just was at least the way it appears to me, it looks like it was just kind of hitting on all cylinders, and they got it done. So it is kind of odd that it did sit there for that long. But, he probably used that to his advantage. And I think we are going to get a pretty polished product. Whether it meets the expectations of the fans, that's for probably another debate.
Oh, well, that debate could go on and
Absolutely.
on, as we've seen in Discord a few times before. All right, so we'll move on to Pablo, which is Joe's favorite person in the world. Indicated from a tweet that the next Star Wars animated series might not be announced to 2019. Now, I'm not going to take a lot of stock in Pablo's tweet, but I think maybe he was listening to the podcast, Joe, because I think we even said this when we were with the Rebels stuff, when Rebels was said, oh, this is it, the final season, blah, blah, blah. I think we even hinted, it was over the summer at some point, obviously. I think we said probably wouldn't be, maybe just before 9 is just about done or after like that January or February or something like that. We said it might come out or something like that. But what are your thoughts on the animated series being pushed back? Do you think that's too long, or do you not think that's too long? Because it seemed like it might be quicker than we thought, because Rebels, they're doing 2 episodes a day now or whatever it is in a couple of weeks. So I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, obviously, not necessarily pushed back because we never had any kind of indication that there was.
True.
We never had any firm confirmation there ever even would be. I think if you're a betting man, you would have guessed that obviously they're going to go and do another animated series. I think almost anybody could have guessed at that. So, I mean, that's not, some Nostradamus type stuff here, figuring that out. They were going to go to another place with it. Now, not getting announced until 2019. Well, that would tell you that it's at least not coming out till probably fall 2019 if they're not even going to announce anything on it. And again, this was like from a video, and he kind of said something, and then somebody tweeted that he said this in this video, or whatever the case was. So maybe it's Star Wars Celebration. So either way, we're looking at it going to be probably at least a year, maybe a year and a half before we get any kind of announcement on what that animated series is. And we've been talking about the next animated series for quite some time and what it could be. And I think that if it's the animated series era that we want, then I think this makes a lot of sense. First of all, because obviously it's just going to take time to produce a completely new show and write it. And, animation takes a while to produce and all of those kinds of things. But if it is between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, you're not going to want to reveal too many secrets in that kind of a storyline era before we've seen episode 9. I'm not saying that maybe the show could premiere before episode 9. Maybe we see, a few shows, maybe it debuts and they don't go into certain details that, that might affect like something that could be found out in 9. But I think that if it's that era that we're hoping it is and speculating that it could be, I think that it makes sense that they're not going to get into the meat and potatoes of it until probably, after episode 9 is released, because it just wouldn't make any sense to talk about that era in any kind of in-depth way, because it would feel like you would have to hold back too much. So I hope this is a good sign that it's in that era.
All right. Well, Albert, do you think this is too long of a wait? In a way, I know they want to finish up Rebels, and obviously it's going to finish in the spring of 2018 or even sooner. I think maybe February or something like that. It'll be done. And of course, episode 8 will be out. And then there's kind of and then you got Han Solo, but there's kind of that gap, like a year. I would assume an announcement would be made there because I want to say a year and a half ago, Dave got reassigned of like head of the animated production at Lucasfilm. And I took that as an indication. Of course, that other woman was hired to do some kind of an animated thing, whatever that is. I don't know. It's top secret. No one really came back and said anything about it. So I'm not sure what's going on. But maybe they're maybe testing animation, what kind of style they want to do, this, that, or the other. I don't know the insides or how that really works or anything. But what are your thoughts on an animated series? Obviously, like Joe has said, it would make sense if it's, but here's the thing with that. If 8 comes out, 9 is really finishing up what is 8 and 7. There wouldn't be too much to really, maybe you're right. Maybe it'll be too close. Maybe you just want to end 9 and it won't be a problem. Yeah. But Albert, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it really kind of depends on what we get out of 8, right? If 8 really starts diving into the weeds and providing a lot of context, then maybe it makes sense that they kind of put it there and they launch a little early. But if we don't get a lot of information, then yeah, I think they'd be stepping on their own lines by kind of going early or having content that's going to conflict with 8 and 9 or the storylines there or what they want to do going forward. When I saw that announcement, I think the first thing that popped up to me was maybe they're lining this up to go with their online streaming service, right? 2019, I think, is when they announced it. Yeah. So maybe they're kind of banking or they're going all in and saying, hey, this is going to be our kind of flagship show. And they tie it with that, right? That's kind of what I was seeing there. But I don't think it's a lot of time, especially when, they've got to probably get some episodes in the can. If they're going to go to an online service, they've got to build all that out and have it available from, day one, that kind of thing. So timing wise, it feels okay. As for me, as far as the era goes, and we've talked about this on Discord, I would prefer it be kind of where you guys are in that same era after Return of the Jedi, before Force Awakens. I don't really have a preference. I think at the end of the day, if they can provide a good quality storyline, give me some characters I like, let me see something that maybe that's new, or give me some insight into some things that I've always wondered about, I'd be okay with that too. I'm not too stuck on not having it any one particular era or the other kind of thing.
Well, as long as we don't get space whales and helicopter lightsabers, I think I'll be okay. For me, I guess I'll ask you this question to both of you real quick, and we'll go on to Ron Howard is all right. Now, the leading theory is obviously post Return of the Jedi. And, it varies which timeline you want to pick up from and whatnot. I think maybe 10 years before, The Force Awakens was probably a good spot to do it. But if it couldn't be this era, where would you guys jump in? What would you go? Obviously, we're all sick of the rebellion era in a way. We're kind of tired of going back to that. Well, I don't know, Albert, you might not be. I know Joe and I are, but I'll throw it to you, Albert. I know you said you really don't care. You just want a quality show. But if you could just throw a dot on the board and just pick one, what would you do?
Well, I'm probably in the same boat as you guys. I would love to go back to the Old Republic, right? Take me back hundreds of years, thousands of years. I don't care how far back. We talked about in Discord. I'd want to go back to the very beginning, like the origins of the Force and lightsabers and the dark and light and all that. I'd love to see how all that played out. But if we don't go that far back, give me something in the Old Republic era. Huge fan of the Old Republic games, and SWTOR played that. I still love that game. So anything in that era, I think, would be probably, if I had my druthers and I had my preference, I would want to go there first.
And Joe, I assume you feel the same way, so there's really no need to even get into that, right?
Yeah, I've always said, the Old Republic, or even sooner, like how you said. I would, I'm not wanting like a rehash of like the Old Republic, though. Like I would like a whole,
something different.
Yeah, I would like a whole reboot on the whole thing. And I know people were going to say, well, "What about Revan?" I don't really care about Revan. So I mean, he's fine. He's fine.
You
but
want
I
Naga Sadow, though, right? You want that guy, right?
Yeah,
you want him?
Naga Sadow, yeah. Like I wouldn't mind Naga, yeah. I mean, if I think I could take Revan has been. I know he's really popular with certain parts of the fan base. It's kind of like a Boba Fett kind of,
Boba Fett
segment
Jedi.
of, so, and I liked that. And don't get me wrong. I mean, it was a great Knights of the Old Republic. The original video game was great. The storyline was great. But they've also kind of run the story into the ground, from some of the stuff I've read with the MMO at times. So it kind of gets kind of wonky. Is he good? Is he bad? Is he good? Is he bad? He's kind of a flip-flopper, I guess. So anyway, I wouldn't mind just in that era and going back and just a total fresh start where you're not tied to any necessarily real canon except the Force exists and it's Star Wars. So you've got the physics of Star Wars, but basically everything else would just be kind of wide open playing field as far as the politics or whatever else is going on. So yeah, I've always leaned that way, and I'm holding out for like a live action for that. But I guess I would take animated as well.
I think we want to see, as we've said, I think long ago, Joe, when we came back, and it might have been in 2014, where we said, we remember the old days of the Old Republic where the Jedi had like a battery pack attached to their belt and stuff, and they were using the light. We wanted to go that far back, and that like not as polished. Like it was kind of still, primitive in a sense, because that was one of the knocks on SWTOR, is that it still looked like it did 3,000 years after. Like it just didn't make much sense to me there. But anyway, we'll move on. Hopefully we'll get an animated series sooner than you think. But Ron Howard keeps sharing the pictures of the Han Solo film, or is it just called Solo now? I don't know what they're doing with that. But there is one rumor I'll address right now with both of you, and I'll start with Joa, is the fact that Darth Vader is rumored to make a cameo. Now, this I don't like. If it's done properly, where maybe he's in the background, you see him for like a half a second, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But I'll throw it to you, Joe. What do you think of this rumored Darth Maul thing? Well, he might show up too, but
yeah, who knows?
But Darth Vader's showing up, and then we'll get to the pitches. So go ahead.
I don't know that I necessarily. Yeah, I don't like. We just had him in Rogue One, and I know we were like, hey, and I was saying stuff like, I think, before it was confirmed he was in Rogue One, I was saying things like, well, you've got a chance. He's alive in this era. You've got a chance to bring Darth Vader back to the big screen. Why would you want to blow that opportunity? Of course, he's got to be in Rogue One. I kind of had that attitude about it. Okay, we saw him. It was great. We all had a geek out moment. We all fanboyed or fangirled out when he was mowing the rebels down, and everybody got excited, and everybody got a buzz off of that, or and everything else. And it was a really cool moment. And it's still cool to watch. And I love when people do the fan edits and they include that in their fan edits of Star Wars or Darth Vader in particular. And they show that as part of his kind of storyline there. So it's great scene. It's cool. It's action packed, but sometimes there's too much of a good thing. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know where. I mean, obviously, we don't know what the storyline is of the movie, and there's a million ways you could write it in and make it work. But for me, sometimes I guess I just don't want to. It would feel forced to me. Hey, let's put Darth Vader in another movie. I would rather this movie we've got Han, we've got Lando, we've got Chewie, and maybe that should be about it. Maybe Jabba makes a cameo or something. I don't know. But you know, I don't want to bring everybody. Yeah, I don't want to bring. It would just feel like, okay, are these really standalone movies, or are we really just relying on the saga films to continue to pump these up? Because we just had Vader in this one, now you bring him in this one, and you know, Darth Vader or Darth Vader's the legacy of Darth Vader. If he's in the Han Solo movie, you realize Darth Vader, some kind of vision or something of him will have been seen in every Star Wars movie ever. If it happens in Han Solo, because we saw his mask in The Force Awakens. So we don't know what we're going to see in The Last Jedi. There's a chance even, you know, Anakin might turn up as a Force ghost. I don't think so, but it could happen. So, I mean,
there's money right
so,
on
I mean,
that
you could have what? So we would be like 10 out of 10 at that point on Darth Vader being in every movie, but you're calling these other movies standalones. Yeah, I mean, so I think at some point you have to let these movies stand on their own, or are they really standalones?
Well, then R2 wouldn't be the storyteller. The droids wouldn't be the storyteller. But you could just say Darth Vader is,
you know? Yep, good point.
Yeah. So, all right, Albert, what do you think of this? I mean, the only way it works in my mind is it's basically a homage to what we see in Empire, where he's walking through and the Falcon gets away. If there's somehow they could tie that in and there'd be a scene like that, and then that's it. Like, we just know the Imperials are coming, Han's going to get away, and we see Vader show up, and it's like that, the Falcon blasts away. They don't even see each other. Because I think if they do, that takes away from what we see in Empire when he's torturing Han at that point, or even seeing him at the dinner table there. But what are your thoughts, Albert?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, I just can't see it happening. And as much as I love Vader and as much as I love Han, if this really is an origin movie for Han, then it just seems like there's a much larger world out there when we talk about like the underground world, right? With all the like the Black Sun and other bounty hunters and smugglers.
Pikes,
yeah. I mean, it just seems like there's a whole nother world, another universe here that's open, and it's wide open for these guys to explore. That if we are going to get a Vader, it is going to be a cameo, or hey, look, there goes his ship flying by, or something. I think the minute you introduce the two characters or put Han in a position where now he's on Vader's radar, I think it lessens the impact of Empire, and I just don't see what he could possibly do that would be significant enough for Vader to get Vader's attention, right?
I can't see. Yeah, I can't see anything other than what that line is. You know, even I get boarded by Imperials at some point. I guess you could tie it in that way, but that seems wonky to me too. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it does, and I think if it does turn out that he is in it and he plays a prominent role in it, then that scene in Empire on Cloud City when he walks through that door is 10 times more powerful now.
Yeah, that's true. All right, well, let's get into the photos here. I'm not sure exactly what we're looking at, other than the spice mines, it looks like, which is apparently there's a bit of controversy because everyone's seems to be a little baffled that Han was a drug smuggler, I guess. I don't know why people have a problem with that, but I'll throw it to you first, Albert. What did you think of the photos that Ron... And I personally, I hope like JJ's listening and watching and he does this for the next one, episode 9, because I like these things. But what do you think, Albert?
Yeah, I think they're great. You know, when I see these photos, and I don't know, they're the ones that Ron Howard's released on. I think there's 2 from Twitter, and I think we've got 1 from Instagram. Yeah. The one thing that came to mind when I saw this was that scene from Return of the Jedi that was cut out. When after they rescue Han and they're heading back to the ships and the sandstorm's going on.
Oh yeah.
If you go back and watch that scene, I watched it just before the show. It's very similar. There's just a lot of dust in the air, and it could be the mines, right? And I'm not advocating that this is on Tatooine or anything like that, but they're all very gritty, very dark, with the exception of that spice mine one. But the first 2 pictures, yeah, something's going on. It's just so cloudy. In one of the pictures, though, it does look like there's some kind of Imperial officer again. I don't know if you guys caught that. It looks like
I was looking. Yeah, that's what I was looking at. And that's where I was wondering, is Vader in that picture? And I'm not seeing it well because it's small and you can't see it. But I can see the guy that's off on his own there.
Right.
He looks like he's an Imperial officer. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, if Han is a smuggler, which we know he is, and this is, I mean, that's who. So obviously the Empire.
That's who he was.
Yeah, I mean, but obviously, I'm just saying. I was just going back to the Darth Vader thing, but I mean, the Empire is obviously going to have some kind of role in this movie because who else would he be hiding, smuggling from? Obviously, he's trying to hide it, whatever his cargo is, from Imperials. So obviously, they are going to have some kind of a there's going to be some Imperial entanglements, I guess, basically you could say.
Exactly. Yeah.
In this movie, I just want to point that out. People say, well, they're going to have Imperials. Why not Darth Vader? I don't know. I guess I just see, even though Vader's in the Empire, I guess I just see a distinction there between the two. And it's not necessarily a distinction. It's just I guess a preference of overdoing things. But,
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I guess I just wanted to clarify that point.
Well, you could also make the point that Vader only gets the phone call when things hit the fan, which is what we saw in Rogue One. He's busy meditating in his bath with Epsom
And we
salts.
also see that in Rebels as well.
Exactly. Like, he gets involved, but then he goes away. So I would expect this to be the lower tier stuff. Not even like Tarkin, like even lower than that. Like maybe like Callus when he was part of the Imperials and stuff like that. So I don't know. But I'll throw one more thing to you, Albert, and then we'll get into our commercial break here. Is the fact that it looks grittier now from the stuff that we saw from the two brothers when they were directing it. We didn't get that gritty kind of look to it. We got a lot of more of the, okay, they're driving the speeder along, and it looked kind of comical.
To be fair, Mike, those were leaked photos that you're talking about, though. So they weren't done up with effects and all of that. These are people taking pictures on their phones, basically.
Yeah,
just to be fair.
Oh yeah, fair schmear. But I get the feeling that it's more in line of what the Han Solo that we were thinking of, compared to what it was a couple of months ago. I don't know, Albert, what are your thoughts? And then we'll go to commercial.
Yeah, I would agree. This seems more, I don't know, I don't want to say grounded, but grounded maybe in the mythology of Han Solo that I would expect. And again, to Joe's point, these are taken with camera or, telephones, but just cell phones. And
Do
so
they call them telephones anymore? I don't think so, but go ahead.
Show my age here. But nonetheless, I can see where some of this, it does look, the other thing that stands out just real quick is there's all these like components, like electronic. It almost looks like a blast has happened in most of these pictures, and I don't know. I can't tell if that's part of the shot or this is just, they're standing so far back that we're seeing all the dirty stuff that we shouldn't see. Like they got cameras. I've got a wheelbarrow, right? I can't tell what's part of the movie and what's not, because some of this is just so gritty that, it's possible some of this is part of the movie, right? Why wouldn't they have a wheelbarrow where they're doing mining? I don't know.
It's a space wheelbarrow.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if it hovers or if it's got a wheel, like an actual wheel.
Yeah, it's got a wheel. Yeah, I can see a wheel there.
Oh, all right. So in space, this is what they do. All right. Well, anyway, I guess we'll take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back.
Guys, if you're like us at the Cantina Cast and hate going shopping for clothes but still want to look good, I want to tell you about Bombfell. Bombfell is an easier way for men to get better clothes. You complete a simple questionnaire and are matched one-to-one with a dedicated personal stylist. Your stylist will email you his or her selections, and after which you'll have 48 hours to make any changes or cancel. You're in complete control. You have complete flexibility. You can receive clothes when you want, and you can pause and cancel at any time. I personally went through the experience, guys, and I received some great clothes. In fact, I just recently wore one of the shirts to an interview. It's really simple to sign up process. I told them the kind of brands and styles of clothes I normally like. I told them what sizes I wear, and I had them surprise me. It certainly beat going to the local department store, and the clothes fit and they look great. And I actually look great for once in my life. So, it's a 4-step process, real easy. You sign up, tell them about yourself, your measurements, and your style preferences. 2, you set up your order, tell them what you want, or you can let them surprise you. And again, you get to edit all that. And then your stylist will put together your clothing picks and send you that preview email that you can edit, and you pay for what you keep, and then you send the rest back. And guess what? Shipping is free both ways. And then for our female listeners, Bombfell provides an option for you to sign up on behalf of your partner. And the Cantina Cast listeners, guys, we were able to negotiate a special deal for you. You're going to get $25 off your first purchase if you visit bombfell.com/cast, BOMBFELL.com/CAST. That's bombfell.com/cast.
Excellent. And we're back. All right. So our main topic this week is family ties. And I think, Albert, this is something you came up with. I could be wrong. I don't know. You guys did the the notes. I didn't really do the notes, so I'm going off of you guys. So in any case, I'll throw it to you first, Albert. What do you want to go with the family ties here? Obviously, it's, as we've always said, Star Wars is family. It is a personal thing, and this is kind of how I even relate to it with my own family. As I often say, Han Solo is like my brother, and my brother and I don't exactly have the best relationship under the sun. But what are your thoughts, Albert?
Yeah, Joa had reached out and just said, hey, what's something that interests you about Star Wars? What do you want to talk about? And as you guys know, and certainly the guys in Discord know, I've got a pretty large family, and the idea of family, even before I'd even kind of dug into some of this stuff, had always intrigued me, even from a very early age. And I guess I want to start with a quote that I'd pulled off this is from CBS This Morning back in 2015. And it's by George Lucas when he was being interviewed. He said, "It's all about generations. It's about, the issues of fathers and sons and grandfathers. It's a family soap opera. It's called a space opera, but people don't realize it's actually a soap opera, and it's all about family problems. It's not about spaceships." And that to me kind of just grounded me, because if you think about it, Star Wars, for all of the dynamics that it gives us with lightsabers and the Force and Jedi and Sith and everything else, none of that really, as human beings, we really can't relate to all that because it doesn't exist today. The only thing that we can really truly relate to, and the things that kind of pull at our heartstrings, so to speak, are those family relationships. And I've always been fascinated by just the sheer number of characters that have either grown up with, without a father, or did something horrible to their parents. There's the redemption aspect of everything when we're talking about Vader and, possibly Kylo, coming up in one of the sequel movies here. But it just seems like and even in the books, right, we've got other characters as well. We've got Ezra, who didn't grow up with a family. We've got Brendel and Armitage Hux, that relationship out of the Phasma book. But it just seems like there's just reoccurring themes, right, of families and some of the horrible things that they tend to do to each other. But at the end of the day, that's what's driving everybody. That's what's pushing everybody to. It's not the Force, it's not the power, it's those relationships. And that was the kind of thing that kind of hit home with me on it. Well,
there's one wise man that once said Star Wars is more than lightsabers and blasters, and that would be me, truly. But yeah, I'll be modest. But anyway, Joa, I'll throw it to you here, is because, and we'll kick it off a little bit here, is the fact that, you've always said, it's the Skywalkers mucking up the galaxy, and the galaxy having to deal with their drama. And that's basically it. It is a family soap opera. But what are your thoughts on the family aspect, which is something we've touched on a little bit, but not in depth. But go ahead.
Yeah, I think when and actually when people get to hear the Leia psychology that we've actually already recorded and it's sitting in the can, and maybe people will question us, why did you hold on to this? And well, they'll be like with Ryan and like, it was finished, why not just release it? But I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, we do kind of go into some of this stuff, so you'll hear maybe a little bit of kind of this stuff again, at least from my perspective. Because I've already had that conversation. So some of it's kind of sticking in my head, but I'll try not to go too far and give too much of that episode away. But you guys will hear that soon, I promise. But, yeah, I mean, the thing that jumps out at me right away was, the first little topic I wrote down myself was, how do we forgive family, even when they do horrible things? And I started looking some quotes up just about family in general. And, I'm not sure if this is from a fiction story. I think that it might be. It's from Jonathan Safran Foer. Everything is Illuminated. But it says, "One day you will do things for me that you hate. That is what it means to be family." And I think that's kind of ties in when you're talking about if you look at it from Luke's perspective, when you're talking about Vader, or maybe Leia, Han's perspective when you're talking about Kylo, or maybe even the reverse of that with Kylo, if he felt like he was this neglected child. Obviously he's telling himself he doesn't care about his parents, but you really do. And and I think he really does. And that's part of really what a large part of his conflict is about. So yeah, I mean, I just always have that question, is what is it in us? I guess it's just, what you would describe as, what is it? Unconditional love. Like, no
Yeah.
matter, it's unconditional. No matter the conditions, I am going to love you. I mean, if you break that down, you hear that phrase and it sounds cliche, unconditional love. But if you really think about it and break it down and think about what that really means, it's no matter the conditions, no matter what happens around us, no matter what you do, no matter what I do, at the end of the day, I'm still going to love you.
And you see that with Han and Kylo, or Ben, at that point in The Force Awakens. Like, Han did basically...
Right. And Leia
still
was
loved his-
asking
yeah.
for him to bring
Yeah.
back and all this stuff. So, I mean, she still wants him back.
And it's interesting because I've just started listening to the Leia novel, to the Journey of the Force Awakens, not the Force Awakens, The Last Jedi. And there are some things that I've mentioned in the first chapter that I wish I knew when we did the Leia psychology, Joe, because and we mentioned it in that episode. So tune in for that, guys. I just wish I had a bit of more of this information because I think it backs up what we say in that. But anyway, that's for another day. But well, the one thing where you're saying, forgiving the family, is Luke taking off, Albert, I'll throw it to you here, is where he decides, all right, you'll do anything for your family. It's, these horrible things, and you're going to have to do something that you're going to hate for me, or whatever that quote was that Joe had just said, is where he just decided, all right, I need to check out because I'm no good for her. I'm doing this because I love you guys. I need to leave, or something like that. What are your thoughts on that with Luke and Leia, Vader, and all them? How do you forgive like Darth Vader? He's your father. Obviously, Luke comes to grips with that, but like Leia, we haven't really seen that yet, where she's kind of okay. I can go past that. I forgive, and stuff like that. I mean, granted, we saw stuff in Bloodlines where she kind of embraces what the past is, but we never see that moment where she forgives or anything like that. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say, for me, I think it really depends on the relationship. So I'll take a step back. As a father, I've got 5 kids, and I've got some that are I've got one that's a little bit older. It's, as a father, I can't see anything, and I'm going to say this with all honesty. To me right now, I can't see anything that my children would do that I wouldn't at some point be unable to forgive them for. And I don't, some of that just stems from the fact that I've reared them since they were babies, and all the long nights of walking them around and them fussing and crying, and then all the good moments, right? All that emotional investment as a parent. I think it's easier for a parent to forgive a child. I think it becomes more difficult for children to forgive parents, and probably more difficult for siblings to forgive one another. And we see that, in everyday life. The one thing that there was something else too I wanted to just throw out there. There was another quote that I found from George Lucas again. That kind of speaks to this. He said, "When my first daughter was 10 years old and I held her for the first time, it was like lightning hit me, a transforming joy I'll never forget. Until then, I had loved movies most. After that, movies became second, and now the nurturing side complements the overcoming, dominating side. After all, we're here to promote life," right? And to me, that says a lot, right? We all know what Lucas was like. We know how methodical he was, how invested he was in his work, and it's that sheer power as a parent of holding your child for the first time, especially right after birth, that special moment. And I think that's that bond that becomes very hard to break. I think it says a lot about Luke and Luke's character, that he was willing to go forward and forgive his father, given everything that had happened, all the atrocities that he had done. And we don't know how much of that was shared by Kenobi, right? He may only be seeing half of it, or may not have the full story. But nonetheless, I think it says a lot about him as a character to be able to see past that and forgive him. And maybe not. He doesn't have to necessarily, forgive him per se, but he may just accept the fact that he did a lot of bad things, but from that point forward, he was now a different person. He knew that from that point forward, he could be a different person. He could be a better person. And I think it speaks a lot to Luke's character to be able to do that as a son.
Now, one of the interesting things that I'm interested, because Star Wars does relate to us, and it's family. We all relate. We all project ourselves. I've said this before on screen. One way or another, we relate to a character or a situation or whatever in some earthly way. We kind of map it out together in our heads. That's just the way we are. And one of them is with Leia and Ben, because I haven't had a great relationship with my own mother. So I'm curious, and I have a good relationship with her now, but we're not that close. And, she's living her life. I'm living my life. I would like to be close. I know she would like to be close, but, we're off doing our things, and one day we'll both regret it later. I can see that happening. I'm curious with Leia, if she's going to feel that way with Kylo. Like, how would she forgive her if the son. I mean, I know that whole mother's unconditional love thing. I think she would. I'm not sure. Does even accepting that Vader was her father at one point and all the atrocities he did prepare her to forgive Ben at this point? I don't know. What do you think, Joa?
Yeah, I mean, it's so, without knowing their backstory and how close that they were, I mean, and even as a parent and child, you know, you see those relationships in real life where, you know, there just isn't a connection, you know. I guess sometimes you see it. I guess it's more, probably you see it a lot more with, you know, fathers not being in the picture with their children. And, you know, I think maybe, I don't know what it is, if it's a biological thing but I mean, even our laws are kind of set up that, you know, I mean, if all things are equal, usually, you know, the children in like a divorce or something like that, from most cases I've seen, if all things are equal and you don't have like a drug addict in the family or something like that, you know, I mean, the mother usually has, you know, at least 50-50, if not most of the custody or whatnot like that. And I mean, I'm not trying to make like a social judgment call here. I'm just trying to.
Well, that's what it was with my parents. My dad weekends and my mom during the week and all that stuff. So yeah, I know what you're saying. That's
I mean,
how
it's not
set up.
I mean, that's kind of the way at least in the United States, that's just how kind of the legal system ends up working. You know, obviously if somebody has problems, then all thing, you know, then goes out the window. But in a normal situation, that's what would probably happen, I guess is what I'm saying. So I don't know where that comes from. If that's just as humans, we just expect that the mother is going to be more nurturing, and maybe they are from a biological standpoint, maybe they're more predisposed to it. But it's definitely not 100% of the time where, you know, that's going to happen. And I don't want to take Leia and Kylo's relationship and say that was the case. We can sit here and make guesses all day. You know, was she too busy doing the Senate thing and Han was too busy doing his thing, you know, with the racing or whatever else it was? It's too hard to say that was the case. We don't know that they didn't try to put things aside at least for a while, and maybe that just wasn't enough for him. Maybe he still felt, you know, because kids can just be, you know, kids are irrational anyway. I think maybe Albert can speak more to that in just a second, but you know, I mean, because sometimes it's just going to be harder for them to, you know, I mean, especially, you know, and it seems that Kylo was an only child. Maybe in a bigger family, maybe that's more of a hard thing to manage. When you have multiple kids, you know, maybe one kid feels like he doesn't get as much attention as the younger child, or maybe even the older child, or, you know,
forget the middle child.
Yeah,
you know,
whatever,
they have the middle child syndrome.
Yeah. I
my
mean,
sister,
maybe that's the thing. Now with Kylo, that doesn't seem like that's the case. Of course, there's some wild theories out there that, you know, with some sibling action or something like that. But anyway,
which we started here. Yeah.
I don't want to get into all that, but I guess I'm just saying that, you know, I don't want to sit here and throw Leia under the bus and say that, you know, well, she just didn't, you know, the connection was never there or something like that. Cause I have no evidence towards that. And I'd like to think that wasn't the case. I just, you know, I think, well, you know, and then sometimes, you know, a parent can be too overbearing in it, and it pushes the child away, especially as they get a little older and enter adolescence, and they want to break away and get out of the nest, or they're feeling like they're old enough and want to get out of the nest even before they really are. And, you know, they don't want to be embarrassed by their parents or things like that. I know I'm speaking more in real world examples, but I think we can kind of all make the connections in our head here where things might be coming into play with maybe things like that with especially with like Leia and Kylo. And then all of a sudden he kind of gets sent off to boarding school with Luke. So, I mean, obviously, you know, just probably a lot of resentment all over the place.
Well, as my father once said, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. And I'm sure Elliot would agree with me and my father on that one. That seems to be the case. But, you know, I'm just curious because with Leia and knowing who her father was, and maybe she'd want a healthy relationship with her son, because, and I agree with you, Joe, we don't have all the pieces. And I only read one or listened to one chapter in the Leia book. So there could be more. I don't know. But you would think she would try harder, from my perspective at the moment, to have that healthy relationship with her son. It's like my father and my sister don't see eye to eye because they're basically one and the same person. And that happens a lot. And and I'm not like I'm like a combination of my mother and my father. So I'm like in between there. And in looking at it as a father of a little girl now, I'm looking at it and trying to do everything possible to have a healthy relationship with my little girl. And I can't fathom me never not speaking to my daughter or whatever, anything like that.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine my relationship being bad with my daughter. I love her to death, and she's very much like me, which puts a little fear into me is because, oh, she's like me and I know how I am, and that scares me to death. But in any case, Albert, any more to say with, maybe the relationships we see in Star Wars with Luke and Vader, Leia and Kylo, or Kylo and even Han? Go ahead.
Yeah, no. So as far as Leia goes, Leia and Kylo, Leia came from a family that was, loving, nurturing. They certainly were able to provide for her in every way that, at least that we know of. And I never got any, just seeing Bail and the way he spoke about her. He obviously loved her and cared for her, much like we probably do with our daughters, Mike. But when you think about Kylo is interesting in that he has, a father who, at least in my opinion, it almost feels like Han got in over his head, right? He had something with Leia. They got together, and just the fatherhood itself is very difficult. It is not an easy job. It is a full-time job, and rearing a child is it's an effort by both parents. And once one parent bows out and says, you know what, this is too much for me, I'm leaving, I need to go take care of myself because I can't take care of this child, that puts all the burden, the emotional burden, everything on that other parent. And to me, it almost feels like that's kind of what happened there with Kylo. So Kylo here is now abandoned, right, to some extent by his father. He now has to rely on his mother and his mom. She's got a full-time job. She's trying to run an entire rebellion and rebuild, a galaxy, so to speak. And maybe there wasn't enough time for there. Maybe she just had to say, you know what, I'll have to, cut some corners there and hope that things turn out for the best.
Go hang out with C-3PO and R2.
Exactly.
And Chewie and all that other stuff. And I can see that in the book. I'll say this is where Leia, she's 16 years old, and she's close to her adopted mother and father, but they stop kind of paying attention to her when she's coming into her age here, and she's trying to, I guess, establish that she's the rightful heir to the Alderaanian throne and stuff like that. So that was very similar to how I see Kylo in a way, and that was kind of an interesting revelation when I was listening to the book on the way home. So I'm looking forward to seeing more because obviously family is a big thing, and I'm curious at how that goes about with Leia, because I didn't see her that way when Return of the Jedi ends. I kind of figured, they got married, they had kids, everything's all hunky-dory type of stuff. But Leia is a very complex character, and she's very much Anakin. Like I just said, like my father and my sister are very much the same. And we've said this quite a bit on the show, and Joe, I think you still agree, is where Leia is more like Anakin and Luke is more like Padme in a way. Luke seems more nurturing, and Leia is more get things done, take things by the horn, and all that action stuff. And she's strong, obviously. So I don't know. Any more thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted to touch on.
Go ahead.
We've got obviously, like Luke when he goes to confront the Emperor and Vader, and he lets himself be captured. And, Leia's obviously his blood, and he's realized this, and now she knows this, but also you've got Han and Chewie and the droids and the whole rebellion. And I think that's kind of Luke's adopted family in a way too. And obviously he, this other quote I found that I know we've got a lot of quotes in here tonight, but I mean, there's just so many good ones and they really make you think. So I'll just read this little quick one. Our most basic instinct is not for survival, but for family. Most of us would give our own life for the survival of a family member, yet we lead our daily life too often as if we take our own family for granted. But it's really the first part of that quote because I can definitely relate to that. And
where it's like Luke and Anakin,
it's like whatever it is that you love, whether it's blood or it's family by not blood, which could be a wife. I mean, obviously you get married, and unless this is Game of Thrones, you're not related to the person by blood. So I mean, hopefully not.
That's like the 100th Game of Thrones
I know.
reference you've made in like the past 2 months. I think
I watch a lot of Game of Thrones.
I know, but I'm just pointing that out. But go ahead.
I know. Well, that was just a joke. It was an in-depth analysis
I know.
there. But anyway, so my point is that if I can remember it now, basically that it's not always blood that's your family, I guess, and so in taking this quote in the context here is we see Luke ready to give up his life for a distraction, as a ruse to distract the Emperor and to distract Vader, so the rebels can shut down the shield generator and then they can blow up the Death Star. And he says, soon I'll be dead and so will you. And these kind of things he's willing to sacrifice for, I guess you could look at it as an overall good of the galaxy. Like this is a
noble thing,
noble and heroic act. But is it more like I'm going to save Han and Leia and Chewie and the droids and these other people? Because you look at it, I mean, he's on Dagobah and Empire Strikes Back, and he has that vision, and Yoda tells him, no, stay and train. Ben tells him, no, stay and train. You're not ready. But the survival of his family and friends, the people that he cares about most, the only attachments, we call this family attachments for the episode, the attachments that he has leads him to do things for the survival of his family and to do things that, and you look at it and then tie that to his father, who obviously had the same kind of vision and went to extremes. And in that quote I read earlier, Anakin did things that he hated, for what he thought was for his family. So, I mean, you can take these quotes and literally insert them into so many different scenarios just in Star Wars. And I think right there, it shows you just how, going back to Albert's quotes that he's read of George Lucas, how involved of a family thing that this is. And I really think at the end of the day, I think for a majority of the people, I think whether they realize it or not, the family aspect is what actually draws them to it more so than the spaceships and everything like that. And even the Force. I've always said, hey, I'm a Force guy. I want the Force. I don't really care about the sci-fi stuff. I want the fantasy. But even at the end of the day, I even overlook it and I'm like, no, but it's really, what do I really want? I want the family. What's going on with Rey? What's going on with Kylo? What Luke, what's he going on with? Is he going to get with Leia again? And are they going to have a reunion and things like that? It's
keeping up with the Skywalkers reality show.
I think that's what it is. And I think that's why I think that's why we have our biases the way we do with some of our fan theories and everything. But yeah, I mean, you take these quotes and you can make up 100 different examples from the movies or the cartoons. And we had a lot of different examples and we didn't get into them, but you can make all these different things where people were doing irrational things based on, I have to protect the people that I care about.
Well, I'll say this. One of the interesting is Brendel and Armitage, where Armitage actually kind of kills his father, which same thing with Kylo. So maybe they'll have a cup of calf and talk over that. But Albert, I'll throw it to you and we'll kind of wrap things up here. Is the fact, all right, we've seen two examples of like when you have attachments leads down a dark road. And to Joe's credit, Padme was his family, obviously, and even Obi-Wan to an extent, but he was blinded by Padme, and Padme is all that mattered. And then you see flash forward to 19, 20 years later, it's Luke who's, he's got a bond with Leia, Han, Chewie, the droids, and even Lando to a degree after a while there. And so you see that bond and that friendship paid off in the end. So where do we come down on the attachment issue with like family? I mean, as Joe has said, it doesn't have to be blood, but blood kind of at the end kind of rules the day because Luke has to go face his father and he has that love for him and still believes in him. And Anakin comes through again and does risk everything and saves his son because of his love for his son and all that other stuff. So I don't know, where do you come down on this at the end of the day? Because for one part of me says, yeah, philosophically, attachments lead to bad decisions and bad things because you're emotionally attached to it. And that's not necessarily a good thing. But then again, that love and that conditional love or unconditional love does good things and can save people and all that other stuff. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? And we'll give it to Joe, and then we'll wrap it all up.
Yeah, so I think to kind of wrap it up, I'm going to side with love, being conquering all, as hokey and as corny as that may sound. I think at the end of the day, when you look at, especially when you start looking at the Jedi and you look at the Sith and how both of them had, the Sith have this perverse idea of what family is. It's really no family, kill them all, ultimate power kind of thing. And then you've got the Jedi who are, absent of family, right? They actually remove that child at an early age, and that child doesn't really get to grow up the way they probably should. And I think if you look at both of those sides, there's faults and there's a lot of wrong in both of those ideas or ideals, right? But for me, it seems like the one redeeming the balance, maybe I guess you could say, is to have family, is to be grounded in those relationships and use those relationships to better, yourself and better the galaxy and all of that. So I'm gonna side at the end of the day that family is the right way to go. That attachments are okay, and like everything else, it's all in moderation and how we go about doing it.
Well, see, now, Joe, I get a little confused with it because I go back and forth in a way. I know that sounds weird, is because, well, Obi-Wan was considered a family and a brother to Anakin, as well as the other Jedi members. And that's equivalent to like Luke and Han and Chewie and all that. And even in Leia at the time when he didn't know that obviously what she is to him and stuff like that. And they both kind of went in two different directions. And I guess that's Lucas's point, is the father and the son making the same choice, doing the same thing, but making different choices, one bad, one good, I guess you could say. But where do you err at this point with the family attachments or the friend attachments? Where do you come with that?
Well, I mean, and sometimes, I mean, you might think, especially, now maybe not everybody could relate to this. I mean, it's something that sometimes I'm like, I get in one of my moods, and Mike, I have them. And then
never heard of that. But go ahead.
Well, I mean, and honestly, it's probably more than just a mood type of thing, but I'm not going to. We don't want to get into all of that. That's maybe a little too far for the podcast. And but when you're talking about these, at that point, maybe whatever you want to call them, psychological issues or whatever. Sometimes you might think, if I don't care about anything, then nothing can hurt me. And I think we've probably seen characters on TV who say things like that, or whatever, or maybe. A listener out there, maybe they've even thought that themselves. They're like, if this is it, like when this dog, like I get that with my dog, I'm like, when my dog is gone, I'm not getting another one because I can't do it again because I love her too much. And I don't want to put them down. I don't want to lose things that I care about. So I'm just not going to care about anything. That's the kind of direction I'm going here. So, but that's a dangerous direction to go to, because then what does that make you become? Do you know what I mean? Like well, I mean, but honestly, no. I mean, it would be something much, much worse. I know that's very hard to fathom, but there are such things worse than Mike Rondo out there. But to be completely serious, it just there is that aspect that enters even my mind where it's like it's I don't. But then the other aspect, and then that's the flip side, and you go, well, you do care about things, and you can't stop, and you crave to want to care about things because, it's a part of your personality. And as much as life is going to hurt you along the way. And the more you love things, the more it's going to hurt when you have to say goodbye to them. You still find in yourself, loving those things and loving them even harder. I think of, if anybody used to, with your kids, or if you're, we're kind of in my age range where you were a kid when this show was on TV, the Tiny Toons, where the Elmira character, I think was her name, and she would hug the animals too hard.
Kiss yourself.
Yeah, she'd all run away. She loved them so much, kind of thing. They kind of overdid it, but she loved them so much she would just want to squeeze them. And that's kind of the way I feel. It's like I just like, you just want to hold on. And I think that's why I relate to Anakin so much. And it's like, if it's like, what would you do if you could have some kind of premonition? What the hell would you do to try to stop that premonition from coming true if you had the power to do it. I think that we see that in a lot of fiction.
But even in real life, if you know you can do something for someone, you're going to do it anyway.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I mean, exactly. I mean, you do what you can, and you act the fool for them, and you might, whether it's your kid and they're being bullied at school, maybe you go yell at somebody. Why are you yelling at like this other kid? Maybe, or you're yelling at their parent. Hey, tell your kid to quit bullying my kid. Or, I mean, there's a million different scenarios you can put in here and talk about. And I know I'm kind of off the subject of Star Wars, but I mean, definitely talking about family here. But you can take any of these scenarios and really relate it and kind of realize what's going on maybe in Anakin's head at certain times. And you're like, oh, what an idiot, what a creeper, creeping on Padme. And we get a lot of that in the Discord. And I was 19 too when I watched that movie. I was creeping on Natalie Portman too. I totally get it. So I was like, I guess I can relate with these Star Wars characters, and I guess sometimes people might like Star Wars, but maybe they don't relate to the characters as much as I do.
No, because I do, because with me...
I'm not saying nobody else does in the world. I'm just saying when I see other people criticize it, like I'm like, they obviously just don't see it. They don't see it the way I do, because they wouldn't be saying the things they do if they did. So, but everybody's got different opinions, I guess, is where I'm going.
Well, for me personally, like with Anakin and his love for Padme, that was me in high school with my high school sweetheart. And then, of course, things happened and I couldn't handle that. And then I became that numb monster inside where I was basically like Darth Vader. I didn't care. I was full of rage and hurt. And
I think at times, I think everybody can associate that something bad's happened in your life and you've gone numb and you're like, and you just kind of shut down, or you quit talking a little bit, or you're just not yourself. But then eventually you just snap out of it because, I don't know if time heals all wounds. I don't think that that's true. But it's more manageable over time. I guess is a better way. Time heals some wounds. I'll say that, but most of them, or for the really bad ones, I think it just kind of, it just makes it more manageable more than heals things. But, but just as my final thought, kind of wrapping it up between kind of adopted family or blood family, I think if Vader was just some random guy, Luke would have no recourse to want to do any of the things that he did. Because when you're not blood related to somebody, it's real easy just to give up on somebody and walk away when you don't have any obligation to them at all. Yeah. If you meet somebody at a party and they're just a total jerk, you're not going to like go out of your way and try to be friends with them. You're going to be like, okay, hope I never see you again. And you go about your business. Right. But I mean, when it's blood and you're, and you have it out with your family, I mean, there's some scars there, but eventually, a lot of times, you end up making up at least. And I think that's kind of what you look at but I think that sometimes when you look at the adopted family, it's just that much stronger because that's the family you choose. And then you look at, and Luke could have walked away from Vader and said, you know what, screw you, Dad. You're a butthole. You've done a lot of bad things. You might be my biological dad, but I don't want nothing to do with you. But, blood kind of has that tether to you to do that. And if he was some just random guy, it wouldn't have been that way. So there is something to say for those blood relationships, but there's also something to say for those relationships that you choose. And I guess that's kind of my final thoughts.
I think at the end of the day, whether it's a surrogate family or a blood family, if something can hold you grounded and shows you love and caring, that you're willing to do anything for them, I guess is what you could say at the end of the day. With that, Albert, I'll throw it to you. Where can they find you other than Discord and doing the Cantina Radio, which is a radio station thing that Albert's working on for us in our Discord channel, and I look forward to that starting soon. But Albert, tell them where to like you, find you, and all that other stuff.
I'm primarily a Twitter person, so if you can find me at Albert M. Padilla, Padilla at Albert M. Padilla is my handle for Twitter. And then join the Discord. We spend a lot of time there, the three of us, and we've got a great group of fans and people that just post everything from what's happening in their lives to what's going on in Star Wars. We got a lot of great channels. And then Cantina Radio is coming up too, like Mike said. So please join that channel if you can. It's a lot of fun, and it's a very safe environment to come in and just kind of share your thoughts and opinions on Star Wars and not have to worry about getting slammed like you would on Reddit or anywhere else.
That's true. We do have some pretty good debates, and we don't all agree. I mean, we disagree, and sometimes we agree, but we all shake hands at the end of the day like little leaguers and, say good game and things are all that. But with that, Joe, tell them where to like us, find us, and all that other good stuff.
You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at The Cantina Cast, Facebook.com/The Cantina Cast. And since you already plugged all of that stuff with the Discord, just look for us on Patreon.
There you go. That works for us. All right, folks. We'll see you guys next week, and maybe we'll be doing something on a trailer. Who knows? We'll find out, but we'll see you guys soon. You're still listening? Wow. That's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.